Hi everyone, this is Nikhil from DSCI. Grand welcome to all of our speakers and attendees in on ASS 2021. And today we are discussing about a crucial topic right now. So the today's topic is devising incident response plan processes, technologies and expertise and service. So we have some distinguished guests from different industries. We have Dr. Lopa Mudra Basu, Advisor, Cloud Security Alliances, Advisory Council. Can we have Dr. Lopa on stage? Hi. So the other speaker is Mr. Gurpreet Singh Grewal, a Deputy General Manager and Information Security Officer of IDBI Bank. Can we have Mr. Gurpreet Singh? Yeah. Hi.
Yes, hi.
And Ms. Sakshi Vidur, Director Enterprises of IT Security of IDBI. Can we have Sakshi Vidur? Yeah. Hi. And Mr. Jitendra Puswani, Associate Director, GSID Global InfoSec Department of Sony.
Hello everyone.
Yeah. And lastly, Mr. CISP, CCSP and a member board of director of Lupa. Can we have Ulung also? Yeah. Hi. So, Dr. Luba, I am giving you the moderator and I request Sudil team to take me to backstage.
Hello, all. Today, mankind has progressed enormously in the field of technology. In this hyperconnected digital world, cybercrime is increasing continuously. Attack has become a more and more sophisticated and organized. According to Ponemon Institute and IBM Security Data Breach Report 2021, the cost of data breach in 2021 is 4.24 million USD. This is a 10% increase from 2019. The global average cost of cybercrime is expected to peak at $6 trillion annually by the end of current year, driven by the proliferation of ransomware attacks. Considering this, it has become imperative for business to have effective and dynamic incident management program in place. Organizations are heavily investing to build the capabilities to effectively combat and manage the external and internal threats. Security leaders are gearing up with well thought out, repeatable, and documented incident response plan supported by cutting edge technologies, analytics, and specialized teams. This is a continuous journey of collaboration. Let us hear from the industry practitioner, their view. To begin with, Gurpreet, what are the key operational challenges faced by security leader while driving an incident response plan in modern cloud-first connected ecosystem? Also, how can security leader address those hurdles?
Good evening, Lopa. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the invite. I think this is a very important and critical element in information security to have a very proactive and a comprehensive incident response plan. So, incident response teams also play a major role in resolving issues or controlling damage, right? So, like you said, challenges are numerous. Maybe I'll like to point out few. First among them is the plan. When you're talking about an incident response plan, I feel the plan itself is could be a challenge uh, because they are not maybe first tailored to the incidents. I've seen that many organizations implement very boilerplate incident response plans. They can enumerate in very extensive detail. Every step is uh, listed out, but this may feel very thorough and very reassuring um, to the top management or to the senior management that we have a very good incident response plan, right? But it can overcomplicate the response procedures and or slow down or even work against the investigations, right? On the other hand, off the shelf plans, which are often very outdated and ineffective in the evolving threats and the changing technology which is there. So this is one challenge from plan perspective. Another aspect of the plan is that the plan is seen as a one time event by many organizations. When you create a plan, it is there. After that, nobody looks at it, but it is supposed to be an ongoing process, right? So as a result of this, plans have incorrect information regarding to the tools, the people, or even the steps which are do not work. Basically, you can see that when incidents are actually uh, investigated, the plans are only worked upon when the actual incident happened. So and in most places you will find that the response plan fails at the first step of the plan itself. So you need to have plans that are constantly evolved and updated on a continuous basis. So for that, maybe the organization should establish procedures, policies, processes that are tailored to their culture, to their environment, to their response personnel, and more importantly, to the business objectives. Documentation, on the other hand, should be very concise. It should not evolve and it should not be very elaborate in that respect. And they should evolve constantly to remain in current with the both the attacker methodology as well as the shift in the business objective. Okay, they should also look at testing their plans frequently. Okay, maybe like a fire drill. When every organization is doing a regular fire drill, right? Similarly, these incident response plans should be tested out, maybe through a tabletop exercise or some other way. Okay, lack of exercising an incident response plan could result in increased response times or confusion, or even exploit can happen. So the better tested a plan, the better is the response. Then the second challenge of this, which I can talk about, is the skill part. The teams which are there in an incident response plan, they are probably they don't have the skills, they are wrongly sized, or they are mismanaged, or they don't know what to do, right? So this could be one aspect of the challenges when we have to work speedier, because it's a, like you said, we are a cloud first or a totally connected ecosystem, right? So the responses have to be that much quicker. So and all organizations regardless of size face challenges when they're coming to choosing the right personnel. And we have seen that people are given duplicate responsibilities. Maybe incident response is one of them. Apart from that, they are doing duties of system or network administrators. They possess the technical knowledge and historical understanding of the how the systems operate, but have no experience making business impacting decisions when a crisis or a breach is happening, right? So they don't know that. On the other hand, maybe large uh, organizations, they try to allocate more efficient number of resources in the incident response team, assuming that more people equals greater capability. This can also lead to overlapping efforts, because lot of teams do lot of means there could be duplicity of efforts also. And in this, I have one interesting area which I feel is a bigger challenge, is the help desk people. They are the first ones, right, to notice anything, be it strange computer behavior, frequent account lockouts, multiple antivirus alerts, computer issues that maybe a malicious code infection or something like that. If the help desk members are not well versed with these needs of the incident response responders or the incident response plan, their work to fix the user issues may destroy the key evidence. So, example like installing software for any matter, or running antivirus or cleaning tools or adjusting system settings can override information that may be invaluable to the incident responders. Uh, Piecing together chain of events can be impossible, exactly. So if these initial actions are not documented, what the teams should do is basically uh, create a memory image, capture a memory image of the system prior to making any changes, if they feel that is uh, that can be done if you have the right tools for it, right? The elders should also be trained to document their activities in case their actions become part of an investigation. Organizations should closely evaluate the need for additional training and internal recruiting assistance to have the right people, right? Uh, this is the second challenge which I feel. Then the third is the tool part, where the tools are probably inadequate, they are unmanaged, they are untested, they are underutilized, right? You can have incident investigation and remediation processes face unexpected delays because of that, or even grind to a halt if the tools are not proper. And even the latest or the greatest technology solution can fail to provide a consistent, reliable output without proper planning, investment, and maintenance.
Thank
Okay.
you, Gurpreet.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very well said that some of the time, if very detailed plan may be a challenge, and a concise, customized plan which is dynamic by nature, supported by correct set of people is important. Also, the team which are providing the external support during the incident, that entire team needs to be oriented on the requirement of the incident. Now, coming to Jitendra, what has been a good incident response strategy on empowering the business anywhere, anytime? Because today, our boundary actually extended to the uh, home from where employees are actually supporting the organization. And what are the key consideration and critical success factor of an incident response plan?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Lupa. So, but before we get into more specific details about the incident response strategies, so for the benefit of 300 plus audience who joined this session, let's take one step back and quickly first understand the basics quickly. So, what is incident response and incident response plan? So, incident response is nothing but a structured process organization follow to identify and deal with cybersecurity incidents. And incident response plan is nothing but a set of documented procedure, or rather I say predetermined set of instructions detailing the steps that should be taken during the incident response. As rightly highlighted by Gurpreet, the incident response plan is specific to an organization and based on their nature of business. There are many strategies are available related to the incident response, but as per a NIST, a good incident response strategy plan consists of four phases. First one, preparation. Second, detection and analysis. Third one is containment, eradication, and recovery. Fourth one is the post-event, or rather, I say, lesson learned phase. Now, coming to the preparation phase, as the name suggests, so in this phase, so we work and the organization work to get ready for the incident response. So, what do we mean by that? So, in this, the activity includes the creation of the procedures, playbooks, tool setup, and training the team. And the most important portion is those procedures are tested thoroughly either through tabletop exercise or war game or blue team red team exercise. Now, the second phase is the detection and analysis, where the objective is to accurately detecting and assessing the incidents, basically knowing the size and scope of the incidents. The third phase that is also very critical is the containment, eradication, and recovery, where the focus is keeping the incident impact as minimal as possible. In this, we isolate the compromised device, identify and fix what has caused the incident, and restore normal services back to business. And the final one is the post-incident activity or lesson learned. So in this, the again the goals are to limit the chances of the incident happening again. So in this, we analyze the incidents and also analyze the incident response, basically to identify the gaps and area of improvement. And based on that, we update our incident response plan accordingly. Now, coming to the key consideration and critical success factor for an incident response. So, of course, the first one is to have a detailed incident response plan. In that response plan, we have to be little specific and outline threat-specific incident response playbook or procedure. It should not be generic in nature, but contains the procedure specific to a particular type of threat. For example, types of different malware. So how do we deal with the different type of malwares, phishing attack, or recently the different type of ransomware that we have to deal. Conduct periodic cyber security exercise, either through tabletop, war game, or red blue team. Form an incident response team with right skill set and experienced resources. This one is a little critical. So have a clear communication. So majority of the time, it's not very clear that to whom to contact, both the internal and external stakeholder, what level of information to be shared. So we should have a very clear communication plan. Provide a regular training to the employee and equip them with the right tools, because the security and the threat landscape is very dynamic in nature and it is updated almost on a daily basis. So we have to equip our employee with right training so that they are ready to face any type of incident. And the last one is the most important. As we all know that incident response is a costly affair. So we should have a strong management backing, and at the same time should have a right process automation so that the right alert to be addressed at the right point of time. So that's all my points from those lines.
Thank you, Jitendra. It's very, very important that the plan should be properly articulated and tested. Also, in case there are certain hurdles we are facing during this entire execution phase, what are the learnings, how that learning is captured is also very important, very well said. Now, coming to Shakshi, how does incident response plan evolving continuously to deal with emerging technologies, attack tactic, changing criminological behavior, increasing regulatory and compliance need? Because we can see that there are some area where we are not too much, organized earlier, but today we can see that very phased by phased organized processes in place supported by the technology. Your view on that, Shashi?
Sure, Dr. Lupa. First of all, thanks for having me on board. It's my pleasure to be here with all the esteemed panelists. Just like to start by saying that the views are my personal and not of my company's. And that's a great question, Lupa, that you brought up. And building upon what my co-panelists have already said, I'd like to say that in the past, the team that was tasked with the responsibility of technology incidents was always IT. And often, it's a team that is sitting in a NOC or a network operation center, monitored systems, and responding to outages. So IT has had a very long history of developing guidelines and budgets, and carrying the full burden of diagnosing, fixing, documenting, and preventing major incidents. I feel the shift that is happening in our times is, the shift from reactive to more proactive. So typically, incident response, is seen as a separate practice from incident prevention. So both these are very important pieces of the puzzle. However, they don't happen to be in tandem. The problem with this approach is that, it keeps incident management in a very reactive state. So on-call employees are tasked with putting out the fires. As soon as the fire is out, they'll move on to the next one. And the only goal in mind is recovery or getting the system back up and running. So recovery is in the whole picture, and the more IT teams are realizing and embracing this over time, so the prevention is getting folded into the process of incident management, and using matrix like the time used to resolve an incident or the mean time to recovery to judge their performance. So the goal is to bring these processes closer together to make sure the teams are not just responding on one fire and moving to the other, but they're actually they respond, they recover, they learn from the incident. They are able to apply those learnings to both the problem at hand and the larger product or the service that they're managing. So that I feel is a blended approach where IT is moving to. The other thing that I'd like to bring is that the DevOps, the SecOps, the architecture teams, these teams are getting more and more involved nowadays. The newer technology and the interconnected products, they've changed how we actually manage incidents. The mindsets and the practices have also changed. The structures are changing in order to keep up with this. So if DevOps is involved in an incident management, then DevOps needs a seat at the table in IT incident management process meetings. And if IT is helping guide these incident management practices, then they need to be more involved in the post-mortem reviews that are conducted by the other teams. So every team is, bringing out their own strengths to the table when it comes to incident management. So I feel like, yeah, DevOps are good at change and learning, and SecOps can lend a security perspective. So the third thing that I want to highlight is collaboration, and to be able to foster more collaboration across all of these teams, companies are doing this very well. By sharing information openly, by fostering empathy across teams. That's very important, and getting rid of these blame games that is usual or very typical. So yeah, prioritizing incident reviews where everyone is sitting on the table and discussing that. So this shift towards some kind of decentralization, collaboration, blending of incident and problem management, this is happening. And one point I would like to highlight is that this requires more than just redistributing responsibilities and scheduling IT to the postmodern process. I feel the key is not the technology, is not even the process. It's creating an internal culture. My colleague mentioned about the training and the other aspects. So I feel like, yeah, it's the strength lies in creating this kind of an internal culture that actually supports these changes. This culture is about openness, about customer centered thinking, about regular health checks. So these are a few of the core components I feel we are seeing these days.
Very well said, Shakshi. One of the areas is the collaboration. That is a very key requirement of a successful incident response. Now, this particular collaboration is not only within the IT or the technology team, it is actually extended beyond that. And communication play a very, very major role in that, because during the incident, you need to collaborate with your partner, you need to collaborate with the external agencies, you need to collaborate with your support provider. Uh, so, my question to Lane, communication play a critical role, as we mentioned, in the incident response. What are the best practices an organization should consider while drafting a communication prototype? What are the must to have and good to have components of communication plan?
Thank you, Lupa. You have pointed out that communication is quite important because in the incident response, we need the sufficient, accurate, and timely information provided to the necessary party so that they can take the necessary action to tackle the incident. So communication is the process that enables the passage of information to other parties. And this information is very important in making key decisions by senior management as well. And in most incidents, you have deal with many parties, not only the internal departments, but also external parties like the CERT team, like law enforcement, and even service providers and other parties that need to cooperate. So good communication is quite important. And the other aspect about communication is if the bridge involves the benefit or interests of your customer, you need to have good communication so that you can help them to mitigate the risks arising from the security incident and not raising fear or denial of responsibility impression from these customers. So communication is very important. In order to have an effective communication, you need to have these steps. The first step is preparation. Preparation is the most important part, and it should not be done until the incident occurs. So you need to have a good communication plan, and every organization should have a unique communication plan that tailor the need of the organization and the involved parties. So this communication plan need to be communicated to all staff, including the incident response policy, the context, and also immediate actions that the staff need to take. For example, for ransomware, you need to advise them to unplug all the network devices or connected devices immediately and not wait until the management know about the instance. So this is communication to staff is very important. And you also need to have the communication message tailored for different parties. And this kind of communication message should be well planned before the incidents. So a lot of organizations have the templates prepared well before the incidents occur. And you need to, secondly, besides this planning, you need to have the communication and authentication protocol. You need to identify the severity level of the incident, and then have the something protocol like internationally. There's some protocol like traffic light protocol. You indicate the information by color. For example, red indicate that this information cannot be forwarded to other parties. And green, it means you can forward to a lot of parties, and white, it means you can forward to every party. So you need to have this kind of protocol set up before. And thirdly, we said about external parties communication. You need to prepare for that. We need to build trust relationship with them before the incident. We need to build a contact database with these parties and the escalation tree of these parties, so that we can communicate with them effectively. And this contact database need to be regularly updated. And all this is important. And for external parties, you are advised to have period meeting, have them to build relationship with you, build trust with you, and exchange your communication protocol. And this is quite important in the preparation. And then when you go to the incident, the incident response activation process need to be formalized, and the communication protocol need to be set up previous to the incident. For example, the frontline and also the SOC staff need to have a triage process to determine if an incident required to respond and escalate, and then they will have a protocol to communicate to the security team or escalate to other teams like the disaster recovery or business continuity planning team. So this is the activation process. And then when we go to the next step is after activation, we need to determine which internal parties we need to communicate. For example, crisis management team or the management or legal team and PR team. And then for external communication, it's quite important we have the party involved to handle this kind of communication. Not everyone in the IR process need to can communicate with external party. For example, we need to identify the message to be conveyed to which party, and then the technical terms and scope of impact, problem, and solution. All these need to be carefully comprehend. And we need to focus on the key matters and not distract other parties. And for communication, usually we advise people to have an FAQ, frequently asked question. FAQ can help to address communication barrier, and also it is quite very useful to remove the rumors that is related to the incident. So communication with the appropriate party need to be handled carefully. For example, you need to decide whether you need to communicate with law enforcement or external parties like the SWAT team to forward the incident to them so that they can forward to other overseas party. Whether you need to communicate with the regulators or you need to communicate with the press and media. So this kind of external communication is very important and need to be handled by the proper party, not a single person to communicate with all of them, but the related party to communicate with each of these external party. And for communication, you also need to monitor the external response and refine your message. For example, some organizations monitor the news and social media response to the incident, and they know about the customer sentiment or the public sentiment so that they can fine-tune their message. And some of them even monitor the stock profile change. So these are quite important in communication. And then, of course, after the incident, as our colleagues had indicated, we should have post-incident evaluation. And then we need to communicate the lesson learned to all the staff involved. So another important part about best practice about communication plan is the IR drill that Kirk has pointed out. IR drill is very important. We need to communicate, have the test on the communication templates, the contact procedure, the comprehension of message and escalation process. So communication plays a key role in the incident response.
Thank you. Now, we are talking about the role of communication. And we see that how important it is. But one of the things is that in incident management, it's actually moving from reactive to proactive. And while doing that shift from reactive to proactive, we can see that security leaders are heavily investing in threat intel and threat hunting program. How to build a investigation and response capability using the actionable threat intel in this digital world where the perimeter's boundary extended to the employee endpoint device at the home. Gurpreet, your quick view on this.
Yeah, thank you, Lopa. Like Long pointed out, communication is important, but for I think security analysts, it's a headache when they are dealing with so many alerts on a daily basis. So, security analysts who are in charge of incident response are having the highest levels of stress in the industry. If you can see, and the rate of cyber crime or the cyber incidents which are increasing over the last 2 decades is mind-boggling, right? And most of these alerts turn out to be false positives. So when dealing with real incidents, the analysts have to painstakingly take spill to so many data manually to come out to assess the actual problem, what it is. Okay, so like you rightly said, we have to collaborate. We have to look at intelligence, threat intelligence. But how do we do that? Right, and we are now copying the cyber criminals. So cyber criminals are working together, they are collaborating, they are sharing information across the dark web. Security professionals should also be working together. And we have seen that the organizations which are highly performing in terms of cyber resilience, they have improved because they participate in threat sharing programs, or even they are increasing because they have built a threat intelligence platform, proper threat intelligence tool which they have got. Okay, those security teams are seeking better insight and awareness into the activity in their environments because of this threat intelligence. Leveraging this threat intelligence is a big part. After we become aware that yes, there is an incident, but how do you take but there are challenges in implementing it. Then the threat intelligence, when we are talking about so many alerts, what it will do is it can automatically identify and dismiss false positives. If you have a good threat intelligence program, it can enrich the alerts with real-time context, like custom risk scores and all. So it can also compare information from internal and external sources. So all of these things can be automated using a threat intelligence way. But then there are a lot of feeds, and not everything is one size fits all. For each organization has to do their own thing. So there are three maybe keys to effectively leverage this threat intelligence for better incident response. Like you said, one is you have to anchor the threat intelligence in incident response plans. Okay, because otherwise analysts are spending far too much time investigating the threat intelligence data. So these threat intelligence should be anchored. Like I said, analysts can escalate the IOCs into incidents, then use the integrations and correlation to make the threat intelligence actionable. By integrating means you integrate with your SIM tool or with your EDR tool. So your endpoint, even if it is the person sitting at home, if you have a proper EDR solution at there, the threat intelligence can be integrated with them and becomes the information becomes more actionable. They can refine and target the scope of the data by considering the context, the severity, the pattern. This helps the security analyst to understand what they are contending with and what to do best with it. The third is the how do you means by tracking the usefulness of the data, the basically the sources. You may have a number of sources. Thread feeds are, I think, coming by the dozen every day. Every day you have a new intelligence company coming up with a new thread feed. You have open source, you have closed communities, you have commercial sources, right? uh, and you have to record how many of these feeds are actually useful, whether they are providing the correct information, the quality of the information, and how critical the information is, relevant to your industry or not. Because some of these feeds will not give any relevant information at all. And if you feel that some feeds are redundant, you need to adjust them, right? I think this is the one thing, or three things rather, which I said.
Right. We can see that, there are lots of tool we, and also while going through this entire end-to-end program on incident management, we can see lots of involvement of people, process, and technology, internal and external. Also, in this digital connected world, the entire ecosystem is very complex, and we can see that organizations are continuously getting armed with security tools and solutions to build the preventive, detective, and proactive capabilities over the decade. But the human error associated with this huge investment is what makes an important and impactful difference. Any Jitendra, any best practice that you'd like to recommend to peer security leaders to build an impactful team that include composition of critical roles in an IO organization, required skill and tactics, also areas that can be automated to improve the result, and thoughtfully security leader can utilize the human brain capital to boost the overall program efficiency.
Yeah. Thanks, Lupa. So again, it is a two-part question. So the first one is humanware, where build an impactful IR team composition, critical role it requires skill and tactics, and the part two is area that can be automated to improve efficiency. Now
Right.
coming to the part one, humanware. Incident response team is made up of various teams, and each team or role is critical to turn an incident from a disaster to a success story. So, incident response team to have a mix of both technical and non-technical resource who will work together to understand basically the scope of the incident, how it can be mitigated and remediated. So, in my opinion, we should have at least 5 to 6 key teams or role composition in the incident response team. Yes, the first one is the monitoring team. Of course, they are the first level of defense who work 24 bar 7 to triage those security alerts, and the skills that they need to have is identify relevant alerts, identify false positive, and in case of an applicable incident, inform the next levels accordingly. Second one is the incident manager or lead who coordinates with various teams, collects all the data about the incidents, and outline the next plan of action. So we can consider him as an analogy of a captain of a ship. So he is the sole responsible for the whole incident management. Third one is the communication lead who manages communication across the organization, including the third party. So that lead and member should also have the public relation skill as well. So in case any information to be shared with the public domain and all. The fourth one is the investigators, who are basically the technical analysts who provide the technical analysis and response to those incidents, basically determines the cause of the attack, work for the system and service recovery. Fifth one are the researchers who support the investigation team or investigation, providing the threat intelligence and context for an incident. So the skills that they should have is exposure to the threat intelligence, forensic malware analysis, and other areas on those lines. The last one and the most important one is the legal representative. So that contains the HR and legal guidance to address potential criminal charges which are derived from those incidents. So these are the key teams and role composition the incident response team have. Now, Coming to the second part of your questions, area that can be automated to improve efficiency. So, in my opinion, in the current scenarios, technologies are getting more advanced and sophisticated. Also, with the advent of artificial intelligence and machine learning, the automation of new and complex areas are possible, which earlier were restricted to simple and standard use case. But we need to make the right balance between automation and human intervention. If we have the robust incident response process and workflow, initial and basic set of activities can be automated. Those activities include alert analysis and communication to the next level by SOC team, initial level of triaging by the investigation team, ticket creation and follow up across the teams, current and real time threat landscape of the incident for the organization to be done by the research team. We can also leverage the technologies around SOAR, RPA, soft automation, decision making softwares to further do the automation of medium complex incident investigation. But as I highlighted earlier, we need to ensure that with automation, we should not miss on any alerts or IOCs of the actual incidents. That's were the few points from my side.
Very nice point. And while we are going through the entire incident management process, we understood that the success of any incident management program depends on few key factors. Visibility and collaboration are the key to effectively response to an incident. Shakshay, as per you, how important is it for an organization to create a governance model for incident response? And what are the critical components one should consider while framing a governance framework around incident response?
Sure, that's a great question, Lupa. So let me start by talking a little bit about what is a governance model, and then we'll come down to the specifics. So, management plans, build and runs, and monitors activities that are in alignment with the direction set by a governance body, and this is all being done to achieve, of course, the enterprise objectives. I'm going by the definition first. So, governance ensures that these stakeholder needs and the conditions and the options are being evaluated to determine a very balanced and agreed upon the objectives that need to be achieved. So they're setting a direction through prioritization and decision making. So governance over the last 2 decades of experience that I have had in the industry, I have seen that governance has moved to the forefront of business and IT organizations specifically, because it's contributing to developing a level of trust between the service organization and its stakeholders, the users, the customers. So the challenges that are usually faced around this area are that the tasks are not clear. In incident response, it's confusing. There is a lack of structure. There is lack of guidance. So it's like, these challenges are taking up a lot of the time, resources, funding, and efforts. And these constraints are actually, draining down the organizations of the progress. There is there is very limited continuous improvement that is taking place. And, you know, and trust me, I've seen many of these happening. So, what I've encountered in multiple organizations is that despite the great intent, the shiny tools, the well defined processes and procedures are already in place, but the challenges like these are slowly, engulfing an organization into a lot of missed opportunities. It's like getting into a black hole of missed opportunities. So the teams are working hard in incident response. They're putting in long hours. They're creating plans, writing documents, communicating. They're spending significant amount of time and resources. However, there are still a lot of issues that are coming. There is no clear decision making and understanding that is there. So, some examples of what I've encountered, I'd like to start with that. So, there is lack of accountability and ownership because there is no long term strategic plan in place. So, is IR actually fulfilling the kind of business needs that are there on speed, quality, flexibility, all those things? Secondly, there is misaligned goals that are not being based on the business value. So the priorities need to be defined clearly. There is lack of clear understanding with the scope of the IR process. Sometimes there are discussions around, what business areas, what line organizations do we support, what kind of technologies do we support. The scope is regional or global. And I have actually, these are very practical ones that I've seen as well. And the last challenge that I've seen very often is that there is no clear escalation path defined for that who should be contacted for what kind of an issue, which market. Like in my previous role, I was in a global organization, and I've used to see this more in terms of in an Asia Pac role, whom to contact. Is it the word vendor? Is it the company itself in case of a major issue? So I feel like my view on governance is that by using strategic roadmaps, you can kill one or more challenges that we have in this area. And so some of the benefits that I've seen of using a governance model in place or a framework in place is that strategic process roadmaps are in place that way. So the benefit are many. In terms of the benefit is clearly on giving business value added focus and elimination of pain points. So the business needs are being identified, are being addressed by doing this, creating long term plans, creating tactical rolling plans based on the business value. So I feel that becomes the priority, and this is one of the biggest pain point that I've seen. The second one I feel is leadership understanding and commitment. The IT leadership has a long term plan and clear understanding of what is required to reach the goals. And this process of continuous planning, reporting, and governing this process of incident response, it gives a very clear understanding, a one page strategic view of the incident management process and what are the key initiatives, what are the funding requirements, maybe over the next 3 years, to provide a lot of clarity and get that management commitment that is of prime importance. The third one I feel is long-term focus. The incident management and the service desk, they'll have a long-term strategic plan and defined goals to be achieved. And one clear aspect is that the scope is defined. So, the scope should consider geographical, organization, technical, all these kind of areas.
Very nice point to Shakshi. And this is a particular topic, right, which we can go on, and it will be kind of, such a pain area for the industry, also a very interesting area we can continuously go ahead. But we had a time constraint
Sure,
today.
I understand.
Yeah. So it's really a very insightful discussion where we understand that what are the challenges of incident management, that is, um, how organization is handling those challenge, requirement of proper governance process in place, or a phased plan, uh, defined role with a proper ownership, as well as a very well articulated plan of communication around that for external and internal parties to address the overall challenge. With this, we are actually reaching to our last question. Long, I would request you to, give a quick view. What are the external law enforcement authority or external agencies need to be included during this entire incident management process? A very quick view on that.
Excuse me, are you asking for external organizations?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
What are the external organization need to be included? A very quick view on that.
Okay. In fact, most of the incidents occur, especially from cyber criminals. They do not attack victims of their own country. They usually attack cross-border countries, so that to create hurdle in law enforcement. So usually we need to deal with overseas parties in incident response, including, for example, we need to communicate with law enforcement so that they can forward the cases to Interpol and to other police in other countries. And we also need to communicate with computer emergency response teams, we call CERT or CERT, around the world. And they can do a fast takedown of IP address or domains that initiate the attacks to your organization. And there are, especially in Asia, maybe India is one of the active India quite active CERT in the Asia Pacific CERT community. So the CERT also participate in the global alliance, like the first, which composed of about 500 CERT teams around the world. So the law enforcement and CERT teams are very important in handling cross-border incidents. And besides these external parties, of course, organizations need to work with service providers, and also some are for some industry sectors, they may have some industry information sharing group that you need to share your incident information with your peers in the industry. So external parties are quite becoming more and more important in handling of incidents.
Thank you, Nong, and thanks to all our esteemed panelists for throwing their view and sharing the experience. Over to Nikhil, and thank you all the audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.